the Agile brand. Hello, my friends. This is Bonnie Habian, and welcome to This Is How She Did It. There are some unbelievable women who've faced big challenges, pushed through fear, and stepped into their worth with grit and authenticity. How? Well, we share it all on This Is How She Did It. You'll hear real stories of persistence, reinvention, and those aha moments that change everything. No fluff, just honest insights and hard-earned lessons from women who refuse to be held back. If you're craving true connection, courage, and practical tips for reshaping your own life or career, you're in the right place because your story isn't over, not even close. Before we jump into today's incredible episode, let me set the stage by bringing you two of the very special women we're going to be speaking with, Suzi McCoy and Katie Dubow. You might already know them from the powerhouse mother-daughter team behind the very successful PR firm, Garden Media Group. It is a PR firm that transformed the green industry from really the roots up. But today, I want you to see the full picture of both of them. Suzi isn't just a trailblazing businesswoman who shattered glass ceilings in a male-dominated market space. She's a mentor, a change maker, and the original risk taker who dared to lead with both heart and hustle, and I love that. Katie, meanwhile, has brought new vision to their legacy by reimagining the future with her drive, digital savvy, and understanding a bit about what the next generation is wanting and needing from the business world and from the world of business in general. Now, their legacy stretches far beyond business because Suzi and Katie are also leading the charge at Impact 100. Actually, Suzi is leading that charge. It's a global group that rallies women to come together, pool their resources, and fund ideas that really spark real, lasting change in their communities. Their journey is about turning vision into action, and I love that, showing just how powerful things become when experience and innovation meet. So today's episode, it's your all-access pass into the realities of starting and scaling a family business, the honest ups and downs of working across generations, mother-daughter, that can be a little dicey at times, and how collective philanthropy, spearheaded by women like Suzi and Katie, is shaking up the rules of what's possible in giving and leadership. If you've ever wondered what it takes to collaborate across generations, create positive disruption, or unite people for meaningful impact, you're in the right place. Now, I'm also grateful, before we jump into that conversation, for some very special listeners, those who go and leave a review or rate the podcast. These are like golden nuggets. We need this. I need this in order to help my podcast grow and continue to find the right audience. And I want to give a shout out today to Shanoa Inez for her recent review. She says, I am only 2 episodes in, and I'm excited about discovering this gem of a podcast. Thank you so much, Shanoa, for this great review. And I want to say I'm grateful for all reviews. And if there's anyone out there who liked this episode, please drop a review and give us a rating because I may shout you out on a future episode. So now let's meet Suzi and Katie. And my friends out there, again, if this is something you are looking to do, whether you are just starting a business, whether you are thinking of starting a business with a daughter or a family member, Suzi and Katie are going to share a lot with us, including some of the obstacles that Suzi had when she started this business back in the 1980s. And I'm going to throw this to you a little bit, Suzi, because I want to hear, how did you get involved in starting your own business? You shared a little story with me before we went on, and I like that story because I think that was probably the best thing that ever happened to you. So give me a little bit of a background on how this business and this entrepreneurial mindset took place with you back in the 80s.
Well, it really started, I was at a dinner party, and this woman was talking about how she had interviewed for a job with an event planning company. And she said, don't want the job. I'm not suited for it. And she leaned over and looked down at me 4 seats down. And she said, but Suzi, you'd be perfect for the job. So I applied. It was part-time. Katie was was in kindergarten at the time. And I applied for the job, and I worked 2 days a week. And I would go out to sell an event. She was doing big corporate events. And I would come back with a PR account. I have a master's in public relations, so that's what I know to do. And after about 3 months, she said, well, this is how I think we should run a PR business. And I said, no, that's not how you run a PR business. She said, well, I think maybe we're going to do it my way. And so I left for an appointment. I came back and all of my belongings were in a little tiny box sitting on my desk. And she said, I think maybe you need to go off and start your own business. So I said, okay. I picked up my box and I got in my car and I went to my next appointment, and they said, great, let's do something. And then I went to see the car dealership that I was working with, and they said, well, do you need a computer? I said, yes. So they sold me a compact computer, and it was,
Oh,
the
remember
size
those.
of a desk. It was huge.
Super heavy, right?
Super heavy. Yep. And it had floppy disks that, spun around.
Oh gosh, Katie. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because your daughter's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I remember that. That was, and think back that time too. Just even learning computers, figuring them out was a big learning challenge,
A
curve for
big
us. So,
learning challenge. Yeah.
all right, so this is the start of your business.
At the time, it was impact marketing and PR. And we were a multi-purpose firm. We worked with everything from steeplechase horse trainers to infertility doctors, truck drivers, and hospitals. So in the tri-state area of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. And it was, anybody that wanted to get a brand awareness and build word of mouth, we would work with it. There was no niche.
Well, I'm gonna do a little bit of a shout out to my friends at Costa now, because this is my. And what did you say this plant was,
An
Katie?
anthurium.
That is my favorite house plant.
It's been really easy to kind of take care of, so I like it. I know my cats really like it. I have to keep it away from them. But this kind of leads me to the next sort of I want to ask you. How did you become so focused in with PR and horticulture?
I got the client, the Connor Pyle Company, Star Roses and Plants, famous now for their knockout roses.
Ah.
And they were my first client in the horticultural business. And then I got a few more. And there was an organization, Garden Com?
Yes, garden com.
Garden Com. It was called something else then. And they had conferences all over the place. And my conferences was in Boston. And I had a friend in Boston who had a great business savvy. And he came to the conference to see us working. And he said, not many people are doing what you're doing the way you're doing it. So I think you should focus in on horticulture. And so at that point, we decided that we were going to make that our niche. Called up one of our clients and said, he was a garden center. I said, who are some of your favorite clients? Because we knew we wanted to be in the manufacturing end of it, not in the retail end. And he gave us the name of some people to go after. And that's how we got started.
Well, it's interesting. I think about PR back then, and I've done PR in my career as well. Crisis communications for some time. I remember having the pager on. I'd get calls in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's awful.
Well, and I had a little girl at the time. I now look to Katie and I say, what she thinks of PR is probably different than how PR started. So, Katie, tell me a little bit about this mother-daughter dynamic. You must have grown up and seen this when you were a little girl, your mom working in PR. How did you get that bug? And where are you now taking the company? Because your mom has kind of passed it on to you.
She has.
Well, she was my first employee.
She likes to tell the story that at age 6, through 10, we would be licking stamps, licking envelopes to send out press releases in the mail.
Oh, remember that. I remember that.
So
crazy.
watching, it's definitely one of those moments where growing up in it, I did not realize what a powerhouse she was. I just knew that we had a great copy machine in the basement and we had all the color paper you could ever want. So I had the best school presentations. But it didn't really occur to me consciously what a influence it was having on me in my life.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
It wasn't until I came back to work at Garden Media Group, and I still hear. I just told her we had a big conference in July that I attended, and I heard this time more than ever, you remind me of your mom. I've heard forever. Tell your mom I said hi. Tell your mom I said hi. But this conference I got more than ever. Katie, you remind me of your mom.
Aww.
And it's such a compliment because I have heard through the last 15 years of coming back to work at Garden Media Group that she really was a trailblazer in the industry. So often many women didn't have examples of what great leaders looked like and what it was to be both feminine in the industry, but also be powerful and really to step into your power.
Yeah. So let's talk about those pink suits. The first thing I thought of was Legally Blonde and Elle Woods, obviously.
Yeah.
But, Katie, there's so much you just said that I want to unpack there because you had a role model you didn't know at the time. You had
Yes.
no idea what your mother was probably, confronting on a daily basis.
No.
But you, Susie, made a very strategic decision that you were going to embrace that femininity in a room full of men. So I need to understand, what was that thought process? And when you would go into those rooms, I want to know who was in there and what was their reaction to your pinkness.
Well, I tell you, it started. One of my first jobs out of graduate school was working for an advertising agency, and we handled Texas chemical companies, spray and wash, fantastic, all those products. And so I went in for a meeting, one of my first meetings, and it was a boardroom full of all men and me. And this was these were laundry products. And they looked at me and they said, "So Susie, how do you do your laundry?" And I said, "Well, Chuck, I drop it off the laundromat in the morning, dirty, and I pick it up, wash and fold
Good
it in
for
the
you.
afternoon." And
Good
so
for you.
that was the last time that they asked me any cleaning questions, which Katie can attest to. Still don't ask me cleaning questions now. But I decided I was going to I love pink. And so when I had my first logo designed, these two men who were Madison Avenue guys that had moved to our area said, "Well, what color do you want it?" And I said, "Well, I want it hot pink." And they said, "Hot pink? Nobody's going to take you seriously with a hot pink logo." And I said, "I wanted hot pink." And so then I got these hot pink pins, and I had a client that I did some work for. And 5 years later, I was in his office and he said, "I still have your hot pink pen. And whenever
See that?
I see this, I think of you." And so I needed to have a brand. And I think I did it unconsciously, wearing the hot pink.
Absolutely. You had a personal brand and people liked you and they bought because of you and they came to your business because of you, and you're ahead of your time, right?
And you walk into a room that's predominantly men, they all had on dark suits. I'm in a hot pink suit, I'm going to stand out like a light bulb.
That's
So
great.
it was a great way to stand out in a crowd.
I got to
I
get a
never
picture of
felt
that
like
if you have
I-
any pictures.
I do. I have pictures of me in a hot pink suit sitting on Santa Claus's lap. But I never felt like I was a woman in a man's. People ask me often, what was it like being a woman in business? And it was like, well, I don't know what it's like to be anything else but a woman in business. And I
Yeah.
never thought of myself as being a woman in business. I thought of myself as being in business. This is my business and I need to make this business work.
Add festive flair to your holiday gatherings with the lively beauty of a lush plant. Costa Farms provides a customized, quick online ordering experience to help you find the right plant for your best events and gifting. From holiday cacti that bloom in vibrant colors to living Christmas trees, Costa Farms creates a fun, cool experience that helps you feel confident and ready to grow. Check out costafarms.com today and enter the code SHEDIDIT15 for a 15% discount on your first purchase. All right, so I want to give my listeners a little bit of and I need it myself too. Give me the scope of the company, with the size of the company, where you serve now, because I want to kind of give them that frame of reference.
So where we are now is we have 11 employees and we're all over the country. We have 18 clients, well over $1 million business. And we
Almost a $2 million business.
well over.
Sounds
And what do
good.
you know? You don't work here. So we are international. We have clients all over the world.
And they're mostly in. So do we know some of these clients? Are you able to? I mean, again, and that's okay if you don't.
So Costa Farms is
Great
one
company.
of them, and Costa has been a client for 13 years. So it's
Yeah.
really wonderful to also have clients that you've worked with through, as you said, printing out press releases, and we've evolved with them. And one of the things that I really pride myself on is keeping up with the market. But Costa Farms, Davy Tree, the Davy Tree Expert Company is one of the largest arboriculture or tree care companies in the world. But then beyond that, honestly, what are the brands that you even know in the garden industry? There are not a lot of household name brands out there.
But it's changing. Right. Listen, I think I'm learning this personalized experience, even with, something like a Costa Farms, where you can now order, easy to care for plants based on whatever your personal
Yes.
preferences are and your abilities are. God knows I don't
Yeah.
have much. So to me, I'm very excited and feel good that I have a plant that's still living. So I think that whole experience has changed too. It's becoming this sort of very, very hyper focused sort of, not only are you able to order something, but then become a community with it. Go online, figure out the best way you can do things,
Yes.
learn.
Yeah, the care tips are at your fingertips, but then also it's so much more out there in the world. It's in every influencer. Every time you look on social media, there's a plant in the screen. So
Yeah.
now it's just part of your daily life. It's like having a refrigerator in a kitchen. Everyone just wants a plant in their living room.
Yeah, yeah. And I think being able to have that education is taking a little bit of the fear away as well.
Yes.
Same thing for me. Now I'm like, oh, I can YouTube it, or I can go in here, I can go to,
Yep.
this website and learn. So how did you get involved in kind of getting this fire? I assume you were around your mom, but a lot of times when you see what your parents do, you really have no interest. You must have somehow developed that passion along the way.
I think so I was in communications. I majored in college in communications and knew because of nature and nurture that this was a business for me. And I was working in New York City and getting a little burnt out and spinning my wheels and not really thinking about coming back home to work in the family business ever. It was never part of the thought process of even moving back home. And then my stepfather called and said, basically, is this something you want to give a shot? Because your mom's going to retire in the next 10 years. So if you want to give this a shot, then you need to think about it. And it was never anything that she said so openly to me, so matter of factly. Maybe you had said it over time, but it never was a conversation we had in that way. I never felt pressured. I never felt pushed to join the family business, never even considered it an option until Fred called me and I said, I think this is the right time for me to give it a shot because what do I have to lose? What else is she going to do? You could sell the business, but let me give this a shot. And I was about 27 years old.
You were that young?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, think about it. Like I acknowledge you, Susie, for starting something and building it to where it is, and what a gift it is for you, Katie, to get in and kind of say, okay, now it's to this point, I can take it in a different direction, the same direction, expand it, and leverage all of the
Yeah.
great things that we have at our fingertips now, and the digital footprint that we now have that is so different than 30, 40 years ago. I mean, it's just mind blowing on what you're able to see. So congratulations to you both. Now I do have a question. I assume you both have a good relationship. I mean, what's your relationship like before, after? I feel that you do, but I also know, because I was very close to my mom, wrote a book about my mother, did a TEDx about my mother. I get it. My mother was not like, we were very different in a lot of ways. So how does that all come to play?
Well, it's funny when you just said, when you came in, you wanted to do this, change this, do that. And that was all on day one. I came in with a very big ego. And it was not clear to me at the time, but I came in thinking, I am here to change things, not I am here to learn from the expert and the master. And that created a
Because
lot
that's
of...
your mother. That's your mother,
Yes.
right? You didn't look at her that way, probably.
No. And I came in and I saw a lot of old fashioned types of techniques being used. And I saw a lot of things that I thought I could make more efficient. But instead of observing, the best practice is always to sit and wait and watch. And we lost a couple employees in those first couple of years because I think, number one, they saw the writing on the wall. Things are going to change with Katie. And number two, it's pretty tense around the office some days. We were in the office at that time. It was about 15 years ago. So we were in the office at that time and we would loudly in the office say, no, I think it should be not done this way. Well, I think it should be done this way. So I think it was the pyramid was not clear. I did not respect the pyramid. And until I was able to respect that she was at the top and that I still had to do it her way, were we able to say, okay, now let's figure out how to, in a compromising way, push the business forward for the greater good of the business.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. You didn't have your lens on that first. You came in thinking, oh my gosh, I see about 10, 15, 20, 30 things that I could change and has to change right now. I don't want to hear it. I know, right? But then you come to respect and learn that it was built that way for a reason, right? You start, these things worked. sometimes, I see the same thing with my daughter. We're different, ages. You may do this way because you've tried a lot of those other ways and it didn't really work. Your clients wanted a certain way. You have to learn about the client. What do they like? What do they want to receive? And so I think in some respects, you were young enough to be molded, right? Which is great. 27, you're still kind of like, all right, whatever. But now you have the insights to understand the business as much as you do after 15
Mhm.
years you've been there,
Yep.
and now take it to all new heights. And that's wonderful. So, I think now you've probably come to a different understanding. And does Susie, do you ask a lot or are you hands off now? You're out.
Oh no, I'm out. Occasionally she'll ask questions and ask my advice about things, but when I decided to sell the business, our accountant said, well, I think you should keep 40% of the stock. And I said, no, I don't want any of it. If I have 40% of the stock, then I'm going to have 40% of the say. And it was important at that time. I'd already backed out enough because we were going to Florida. We started going to Florida. And I sat next to a succession planner at a CEO luncheon. And I asked him, I said, what would be your one piece of advice to me to transition this company over to my daughter easily? And he said, go away on vacation for 3 months and don't call in. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it was
Hard.
that time that we were going to Florida in the winter. And so I started working on a national nonprofit for the consumer horticulture industry. And so I was putting a lot of my attention and focus on that and letting Katie run the business. And I would come back in the summer and I'd walk back into the office thinking, oh, okay, I'm back. And it was clear that the office didn't need me anymore. So it made that transition much easier because I was away from it. I know a lot of people that just can't get out of they want to turn it over to their children, but they don't know how to let go. And I think letting go is so important because it's got to be hers, and she had to run it the way she wanted to run it. I ran it the way I wanted to run it for 30 years. It was time for her to be able to take it and run it her way. My sister and her husband were sailors, and I remember sailing in a regatta with them one time in a race, and Nancy was telling Sam what to do, and Sam looked at her and he said, Nancy, there's only one captain on this boat, and it's me. And that's the way it is in a business. There's only one leader. It all falls back on you too. I remember telling Katie when she first came to talk to me about taking over the business, I said, well, there are going to be some lean times and you're going to have to lay somebody off.
Yeah, that's the worst. Yeah, I was going to just say that's the worst.
But that somebody is going to be you. You're
Yeah.
the first person that gets laid off in your business. Oh yeah, firing people is the worst.
Yeah.
And what she means by that is taking a salary cut, how to make things
Right.
work, which I
Right.
learned that she did over the years, taking massive salary cuts, not taking a paycheck a couple of months so that you could keep your staff on and get through some of those lean times. Like 2008, 2009 was a really rough time for Garden Media Group.
Yeah, the pandemic. Who's going to be coming to you for PR on horticulture? Nobody, right? I mean,
Well, the pandemic actually for gardening, I don't know if you gardened over the pandemic.
that's true.
Yeah, the pandemic was for our business. It changed our business drastically. And
Yes.
first of all, January of 2020 was my first year as the primary business owner. So she retired December 31st, 2019, and I took over officially. And 3 months later, the world shut down. So I was a little nervous, but interestingly, I didn't have a lot of time to dwell on what's it like being a business owner. What am I going to do with all these employee salaries? Because it was the busiest time we've ever had as a business.
Yeah, I would imagine that's something you could do on your own. People were staying home. That's great. So you probably pivoted and found that opportunity.
Yeah. It was fabulous for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I need to go back. I have to ask Susie, during your business, can you share with us what one of the hardest obstacles were as a business owner? And then how that adversity you came to, push through onto the other side?
Well, for me, the hardest thing was, I know people always laugh when I say this, but I have a shy streak. And so to have to make cold calls was probably the hardest thing for me in building the business and getting new clients. Once I got the client, it was easy for me to come up with the ideas, to come up with the marketing, to do the press releases and write the stories and get them out there and get them placed. That was easy for me. It was cold calling to get the new business was really hard. I had this derby that I had won in college, and I kept it on my desk. And whenever I had to make cold calls, I literally would change hats and I would put that derby on and I would make those cold calls, and I would have a goal of how many calls a day I had to make.
That's entrepreneurialism at its best. And it's something I think from a mantra, we talk about a lot of mantras on this show. You don't grow unless you change. And if you do something every day that you're afraid of and get through to the other side, that's to me in myself, like what I would say is a mark for success, being able to push through and do something that was very uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
So it was kind of pushing yourself through that change to say, okay, now I'm not so afraid of it, to get to the other side and say, oh my goodness, it's not that bad. I have to do this. This is part of the business. If I don't do this, I don't succeed. And
That's
you
right.
figured it out. So that's a wonderful story. And I think a lot of the listeners on this show can really take that and say, listen, I do stuff every day that I don't want to do. I'm afraid to do. I got to stop that. I just got to go through it, move through that pain, move through that fear, because on the other side is a land of opportunity.
That's right.
I love that. Beyonce has an ultra personality as well. Like Suzi, when she put her hat on, I said, you are Sasha Fierce. Even people like Beyonce get nervous and scared. And you just create this other personality. And I am going to step into my Sasha Fierce today.
That's adorable. I love it. What about you? What has been one of the hardest things? And you can give me an instance, a story, a scenario that was one of the hardest things you faced and how you grew through it.
I think one of the hardest things about being a business owner is knowing when to grow. It feels sometimes like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. When do I hire that new person? Because I don't know if that client's going to sign on, but I need that new person to serve that client. So for me, running the business in that way of a growth, making sure the business grows in a mindful and affordable and sustainable way is something I think about every day. Is it time to hire? Is it time to hire? Are we going to get that next client? We have 6 prospective clients in the pipeline right now. What if they all say yes?
Right.
So
That's a good problem to have.
It is a great problem to have. And it's something that I was, handed down. This word of mouth part of our business is what makes us so special.
It's the brand. Yeah.
The relationships that were built over time. And so for me, it's just managing that growth is one of the biggest challenges.
Do you go to your mom for situations like this when you say, hey, mom, I have a potential 6 people in the pipeline. They may all come at the same time? Because I loved how your mom just said that's a good problem. Do you bounce that kind of stuff off of her? Or?
I just told her a story about a prospect I just spoke to and walked her through kind of what I said to them. And she was like, well, that was great advice. And I'm like, in my head, that's what I was hoping you would say. But, and often she doesn't always tell me that what I did was what she would have done. Sometimes she says, well, I would have handled it this way. So I do tell her stories about things that are outliers for sure. Like, look at I just came across somebody today that I told them they actually don't need us. They shouldn't hire us. And she's like, oh yeah, I did that. So it's like, okay, you know what I'm doing is not crazy.
Well, you're taking your core values in this business. I mean, again, that just goes back to probably who you are as a person. And that's not a bad thing because that's how you've grown the business and that's how you've grown the brand and that's how you've grown those relationships.
Well, that is a challenging thing, particularly in public relations, is staying true to your core values. We had a client that wanted us to stretch the truth in our press releases on how many people attended open house, for example. And I said, well, no, that's not him. I mean, not to stretch it a little bit. It was like triple the number of people that were actually there. And I said, no, we can't do that. And so when their contract came to be renewed, we'd already decided we weren't going to renew it. And he called up 2 days after the contract had expired and demanded something of us. And I said, we don't have a relationship anymore. And it felt so good to be able to, I didn't fire him, but we didn't renew the contract. And, you just have to make sure that our reputation was so important because it's hard to build a reputation, but it's real easy to lose it.
I wanted to ask you this question, Suzi. I mean, we live in a world today where PR has gone beyond just a press release. I mean, it's social media, it's virality, it's, things. I mean, we all watch that Coldplay debacle
Oh,
a few months. I'm thinking, how would I, from a PR perspective? Well, I
Mm,
got to tell you, the CEO walked in and kind of leveraged it by saying nobody knew who we were before; they knew who we are now, right?
yeah.
We're in a completely different place where things move at lightning speed. So, I mean, that's got to be in some respects, just being able to see that is kind of, I guess, an eye opener for all of us. But what is your thoughts on the whole social media and, kind of how that's taken on a whole new life of its own, Susie?
Well, we started seeing social media probably 15, at least 15 years ago, 20 years ago, being so critical that's like the ultimate word of mouth is social media. So it's how do you harness it?
Right.
How do you
Right.
keep your brand relevant when there's so much noise out there? And it used to be your message had to be heard 7 times because there was so much noise before anybody heard it. Now it must be 700 times because there's so much distraction.
I know. And now you layer in AI, and now these AI influencers are taking over. So now it's not even people anymore. So I don't even know. My head spins, most of the time. But I want to get back and ask you a question, Katie. What advice would you have for women who want to start something new, but fear they don't have enough experience, enough resources? Fear is holding them back. What
mm.
advice would you have for them?
Well, I had a wonderful business coach who talked to me about your power. And you need to find your power. You are an incredibly talented, smart person. If you think you want to start this business, you can do it today. What steps do you need to put into place to do it? Don't wait. This is the same concept as a tree, a fruit tree, or any kind of oak tree you want to plant. The old adage is the second best time to plant a tree is tomorrow. The first best time is 20 years ago.
Love that. I'm going to use that. That's going to be one of my mantras I take from this show because
Yeah.
I do quotes. That's coming out.
So, it is don't sit on waiting. You will never be ready. You will never fully be ready to start. And I tell some of my young employees who I say, why don't you lead this meeting today? Oh, I don't know if I'm ready. Fake it till you make it. I truly believe in that. I know a lot of people don't subscribe to the fake it till you make it, but I believe that you always can talk yourself out of something. So today is the day that you start. Step your foot into your power. Decide to take that initiative, and your experience will build the thing that you want, and it might go in a couple different directions. I was lucky to be given a business that was successful with a fabulous reputation. And I didn't know, and I still don't know what the next 20 years will entail for us. But I am very proud of where it is going. And I make conscious decisions to take it there, but I also go with where the next opportunity lies. So, and don't be afraid to say yes to things.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Katie didn't say make a list because she's a huge list maker. And I think if you write down the things that you need to do today to get to your goal tomorrow will help you get there. But just wishing that it's going to happen, it's not going to happen unless you make a plan.
Yeah. I think that's very, very well said. I want to pivot a little bit. What is Impact 100? Can you just give us a quick elevator pitch on
Sure.
what it
Yeah.
is?
Impact 100 is a global organization that we're not affiliated with Impact Global, but we're individual nonprofits of women in different communities. And I'm in Indian River County, Florida, which is Vero Beach, Florida. And we pool our resources. Every woman donates $1,000, and we pool our resources. And for every 100 members, we give out $100,000 grant to a local nonprofit. They have to apply. It has to be transformational. It has to be sustainable, and the money has to be spent within our county.
Well,
So this year,
that's interesting.
fabulous. Yeah, this year we
Yeah.
get about $475,000, and in total we've given away almost $7 million in the last 15 years.
That is, and it's a woman-owned nonprofit, I assume.
Women only nonprofit.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. All right. I want to ask this. What are the biggest lesson each of you have learned from each other as professionals?
With Katie, I have learned that I don't have to be a perfectionist. I would take hours and hours and days to write a proposal to make sure I dug down deep into the company and knew everything. Katie can whip out a proposal in a day. And so I would rewrite a press release over and over again, and I would change just a few words. So I learned that I do not have to be a perfectionist to be successful.
Okay, what about you? Yeah.
For my whole life, she would call me a 90%er. And for a little bit, I kind of took that personally. Why am I not a 100%er? But then I kind of wear it as a badge now. I don't need to get to 100% to be finished. Let's move on. It's good enough. But I also surround myself with great people. So copy editing is not my thing. I have other people to do that. I need to get it to that 90% and move on. So that's where that comes from. Oh, I mean, how much time do you have?
We're wrapping up, so you can give a
Yeah.
couple more.
Interestingly, I think one of the things that embarrassed me most when I was a kid is one of the things I learned the most from her. And it's not being afraid to take up space in a room, not being afraid to have your voice heard.
Oh, I love that.
When I would sit in a room and she would speak out or speak up or disagree with somebody, and I would want to just disappear. But now I see, well, not only is it just important because you have an idea and you deserve to be heard, but man, are your ideas good. And look at the person. Don't look at her. Look at the person who the idea is going to and look at their face. Like you can watch, I can remember people soaking it in, taking notes, just the information they were being given was so valuable to them. And so
Right.
not being afraid to speak out, speak up.
That, you know what? That is just really powerful. I've never heard of it really kind of presented that way. Do not be afraid to take up space in a room. And that is, I just, again, and you're giving me some great takeaways here. I mean, again, this show is all about how we can help people get to the next side if they've faced
Yes.
adversity in whatever life is, push through, because I think everyone has such talent and potential, but there are things that hold them back. And so I want to kind of wrap up the show because obviously your mom was ahead of her time and you have incredible energy. And I know you're going to take this company to great places.
Thank you.
Suzi, let me start with you. What are 3 things or 3 pieces of advice you would give to any woman who may have a dream, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to take a class, whether it is to not be afraid to get up and speak in front of someone, whatever it is, what are 3 pieces of advice you would give them to get them to where their dreams are?
Well, I would say take care of yourself. It's really important to take time for yourself, take time to get away by yourself so that you can collect your thoughts. Women are pulled in so many, particularly women who are married with children. You've got your husband's pulling on you, your children are pulling on you. So you need to make sure you take time for yourself. I would also say make a plan. When I got ready to retire, one of my best girlfriends said to me, you write proposals all the time for clients. Why don't you write one for yourself?
Totally agree. A business plan. I totally agree. I love
I
it.
wrote a business plan for myself. Yep. And so I would say, take time for yourself, make a plan. And as Katie said, just step into it. You can have a million excuses why not do it, but come up with just one good excuse to do it and do it.
Love it. Love it. All right. What about you, Katie?
So I know you're going to agree with all of these, but number 1 is invest in your relationships. One of the things that has made Garden Media successful and what will take us into this AI era is that we build great relationships. I can call up somebody from the Today Show, top influencer. Hilton Carter is someone who works with Costa Farms, an interior scaper with houseplants. Call him up, text him. You develop relationships with people because you care, not because they're going to get you something, but
And they trust you.
invest in relationships. Number
Yeah.
1, really important. Number 2 is embrace change. I was on a call last week with somebody and we do trends. The Garden Trends Report is a big thing Garden Media Group does. And I said, are you sure your customers want this talk? He said, you know what I tell people is if you can count on one thing next year, and that's going to be change. It's the only thing you can count on.
Yeah.
And so embrace the change, be ready for it, and don't be afraid. And I will echo the speak up and speak out often. Don't be afraid to have your voice heard. If you are more introverted, prepare ahead of time. Have a list of things you want to talk about. So that way you are prepared to say those things and you don't have to be as spontaneous, but speak up and speak out.
I love it. And I just want to thank you both. I just think, all of the various little nuggets of information you've given us are so important. And so I just want to say thank you. I wish you both the best of luck and continued success. And for those who are listening now, if you like this episode, again, take a moment to rate it. Take a moment to just, write something positive. And I want to thank you both for being inspirational and hope you continue to grow.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you so much for having us.
If you want to learn more about our guest, check out the show notes. And please take a moment to write a positive review about the show on Apple or Spotify, because this is the best way for bold women to find this show. To write a positive review, scroll down to the bottom of the podcast and click where it says write a review. In return, you get good karma and a shout out on a future episode. Until next time, my friends, keep pushing through that fear and making your future yours. You've got this.
The Agile brand.